Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's virtual disaster center with the Maryland Insurance Administration. My name is Patty Dorn, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's event. As you all know, many parts of Maryland have experienced extensive damage from several storms recently. And we know this can be a very stressful situation. And we do certainly hope that everyone is safe in your own situation right now. And, we're here to talk to you about insurance. So even when you are fairly confident that you have the right insurance for these situations, we know that you can still have questions. Today, we're going to start with a presentation by Associate Commissioner Joy Hatchett. She's going to cover insurance issues related to storm damage. And then after the presentation, we're going to be available to answer your questions and potentially help you with insurance issues that you may be currently experiencing. So during Associate Commissioner Hatchett's presentation, please put any questions that you have for her in the chat box. So you'll see the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And if you can make sure that those questions are sent to everyone. After she has finished the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back and ask her the questions from the chat during a Q&A session. If you have a question that is specific to your own situation, we're going to be answering those questions in individual breakout rooms after the Q&A. So please use the chat box to request a breakout room. So if it's a general question, go ahead and feel free to put it in the chat and we'll ask it during the Q&A. If it's specific to your situation, then please request a breakout room. The breakout rooms are private. The breakout rooms are not recorded. And in the breakout room, you'll be meeting one-on-one with a representative from the Maryland Insurance Administration. Just a couple housekeeping rules. A reminder again, this event is being recorded. However, the breakout rooms are not recorded. Please keep your cameras off and keep your mics on mute for this part of the event. Feel free to turn your cameras on and of course your mics on in the breakout room. Again, general questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box. Questions specific to your situation, please request a breakout room. And with that, I would now like to introduce Associate Commissioner Joy Hatchett.
Thanks, Patty. So just to go over a couple of things that Patty indicated. First of all, a lot of you may not know who exactly we are. We are the Maryland Insurance Administration, and our agency takes care of insurance issues. We are here to enforce the laws of the state of Maryland to make sure that the insurance companies and the entities that are involved in the insurance business comply with all of Maryland laws. And one of the big things that we do is we try to work with consumers to help them understand their insurance policies. And then if they have a claim or some other issue with an insurance company, we are the state agency that you can come to and we can assist you with that. Now, during this time of year, we have lots of different types of weather events. And over the last month or so, we have had lots of different trees down, flooding, wind damage, hail damage. So what we're going to do today is really focus on if you have damage as a result of a storm. We're going to talk a little bit about what you can do and what the insurance company has to do under the terms of your specific policy. And one of the places that we like to start is, remember, your insurance policy is a contract. And just like any other contract, you have obligations under that contract, and you have to comply with those obligations. And it's critical that you understand what those obligations and what the terms of your contract specifically provide. And if at any point you don't understand what that contract means or what you're required to do, the first place to go is to either go to your, what we call them insurance producers, but you guys may know them better as insurance agents, or go to your insurance company and say, well, exactly what does this mean? When you talk about my deductible, what is that? When you have this specific term, what does that mean? Because they are there to help to make sure that you understand. Now, if you get into a position where either they're not being responsive or you still don't understand, we at the Maryland Insurance Administration, you can come to us, and we've got a lot of trained people that every day we are there to answer the phone or answer your email to help you understand. So as I said, today we're just going to talk a little bit about, after these disasters, what the claims process is like and what you should expect. Next slide, please. So I also like to tell people that this presentation is not legal advice. And as I indicated, the best place for you to go to find out what you are obligated to do and what the insurance company is obligated to give you is to your insurance agent or your insurance producer. Next slide, please. So let's start just for a few minutes talking about your automobile, because as I indicated, there were lots of people that had damage either because trees fell on their vehicles or they had flooded vehicles. So a lot of people have those types of claims. And so what you need to know is, first of all, what type of automobile insurance coverage do you have? Do you have full coverage or just minimum coverage? So, because based on the type of coverage you have, that'll tell you when and how much your insurance company will pay. So really make sure that you understand that, because some people, especially after your vehicle gets a little older, you may drop some of the types of coverage that you would normally have and no longer have full coverage. And if that's the case, if you just have the state minimum coverages, then for something like a tree falling or flooding, you may not have coverage to pay for that. So what we tell people is, if you don't know what type of coverage you have on your vehicle, you're going to be getting something, and you get this every 6 months or once a year, your declaration page. And that's going to explain to you what kind of policy you have. So find that out. And then, okay, so let's say after this particular event, you have a loss and you call the insurance company, and the insurance company says, take this to this specific body shop. Now, the insurance company can say that to you, but if you don't want to go to their particular body shop, you have the right to choose your own body shop. Now, by going to their body shop, usually they have adjusters that are right there, and they'll look at the vehicle and do the claim settlement. And that'll be done between that body shop and the insurance company. But you can, as I said, you can go to your own body shop, and then the insurance company may say, well, that's fine, but we want to look at the vehicle before we determine how much to pay. And if the insurance company says that, then you must make sure that the insurance company has the opportunity to assess the vehicle and look at the damage. Next slide, please. So sometimes, especially after you have flood damage, sometimes the insurance company will make the determination that your vehicle is a total loss. And a total loss can occur if the cost to repair the vehicle is 75% or greater than the fair market value of the vehicle. And people will say, well, why 75%? That is a requirement that they don't have a choice. They cannot change and say 70%. They have to stick with 75%. But if you dispute that, you have the right to dispute whether or not your vehicle's value. You can dispute how much the value of the vehicle is, or you can dispute how much it's going to cost for the repairs. But just because you dispute it doesn't mean that the insurance company has to accept either your valuation of your vehicle or your determination of how much it's going to cost for repairs. Next slide, please. As I indicated, you have the ability to negotiate with your insurance company, but you just don't, negotiation doesn't mean that you can just say, this is how much it's going to cost for the repairs. You actually have to get documentation to support the numbers that you're trying to indicate your vehicle is worth. Next slide, please. And one of the things that some people, especially people, if you have an older vehicle and the vehicle's been working fine with you and you want to keep your vehicle, you can do that, but then your vehicle must be marked as a salvaged vehicle. And that's so that if at some point in the future you want to sell that vehicle, the title is marked as such. Next slide, please. So let's move and talk for a few minutes about homeowners insurance. Now, homeowners insurance is one of those things where a lot of people, unlike automobile insurance, where it's pretty base, I don't want to say, well, it is pretty basic. Homeowners insurance has lots of parts to it. So you really need to understand what your particular policy covers, what optional coverages you can get, and making sure you understand how much those additional coverages are. And one of the things that you should do is, if you're not sure about your coverages, go to our website. We have a wonderful book that explains homeowners insurance and all of the different optional coverages, and you can make decisions about what specifically you need. And Patty, if you could put the link to that in our chat box, I think that might be helpful. And what I tell people is, you're going to get, just like you get a declaration page on your auto insurance, your homeowner's insurance company is going to send you information about your homeowner's insurance. And that particular information is going to tell you how much coverage you have, what your deductibles are, and if you have any limits on your particular policy. And it's really important that you understand that. So before something happens, you have and know what your coverages are. Next slide, please. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about what you should do immediately after a loss. One of the things that you need to make sure you do is to promptly contact your insurance company. And why is that so important? Because sometimes people will say, well, I just want to, do some of the work myself, and then I'll get in touch with the insurance company. Well, first and foremost, if you start doing the work and making repairs before you let the insurance company look at the damage, then the insurance company may say, well, we didn't know and we didn't have the chance to look at the particular damage, so we're not going to pay for those. So promptly contact your insurance company. Now, that being said, there may be claims that are for such a minimal amount that you determine you don't want to file it, or you don't even need to file a claim because the amount of the claim is less than your deductible. For example, for some of the folks that had food loss this past time, or you just have maybe a couple of pieces of siding that are off your particular home, and you look at that and you say, well, that's going to cost about $500 or $600 to fix, and your deductible is $1,000. Well, that's not a claim that the insurance company is going to be responsible for paying anything out on. So there's no reason for you for that particular case to file a claim. So after you've contacted your insurance company, one of the big things that you need to do is take photographs and videos. And everybody's got a cell phone. Well, not everybody, but most people have a cell phone, of everything that is damaged, both outside and inside, in real time. For example, if you've got sewage that has come in to the basement because you've got a toilet that's overflowed with sewage, take pictures of that so that you can show what it looked at immediately. Now, when you're taking your photographs or your video, don't put yourself at risk when you're doing that, but just make sure that you get as many pictures as possible. Now, also under the terms of your policy, you have something called a duty to mitigate. That means that you have a responsibility to make sure that the damages are not made worse because you haven't put a tarp up or put boards over the windows or something to prevent further damage. Now, you should not be making permanent repairs, but this is merely to make sure that rain doesn't come in or nothing happens to further damage the property. And also, you should never remove damaged property from the premises before an insurance adjuster, your agent, or some other representative of the insurance company has the opportunity to review the damaged property. And I mean, I know a lot of times your city, your county, or your jurisdiction may say, well, we're going to have somebody that's going to come through the neighborhood and pick up all this damaged stuff. And so you're going to take that, your instinct is to take that couch out to the curb so they can get removed. But if you do that and don't give the insurance company an opportunity to look at that couch, the insurance company might say to you, well, we didn't have a chance to look at the damaged property, so we're not going to pay for it. So get in touch with that insurance company promptly. Next slide, please. To the extent that you need to make any emergency repairs, remember I talked about that tarp or putting boards over the windows, those are considered emergency repairs. Keep receipts for all of that. So if you go to Home Depot and buy a tarp, keep your receipts, because those receipts you're going to have to submit to the insurance company for reimbursement. Also, keep a detailed inventory of anything that's damaged or destroyed. And you need to make sure that you take the pictures, keep the inventory, because also, once again, that's going to be something that you're going to give to the insurance company to support your claim. If at all possible, you should be present when the insurance company sends their adjuster to inspect your property. And if you have a contractor, it would be great if you could have the contractor there as well. But the reason for this is that you and your contractor can make sure that the adjuster sees all of the damaged items. So let's say the insurance company comes and they only look at the front of the house, but around the back, there's all of this siding that's been blown off. Well, then you can show that to the insurance adjuster to make sure that they don't miss that. And also by having the insurance adjuster, you and the contractor there, it just helps open the dialogue to make sure that you are talking about what the issues are, and so that you have the opportunity to ask questions, because what comes next is the settlement offer. Now, you're not going to get that when generally speaking, when the adjuster actually comes to do the inspection. That's going to come later, but the adjuster is the perfect time for you to ask questions and find out, what is this? What is that? And so when that settlement offer comes, you have a better understanding. Now, when you see that settlement offer, if you have questions before you cash the check, make sure that you review the settlement offer and ask questions. And I see that the slides are now gone. Don't worry, the slides will be available for you after this video, and I'm just going to keep going. So don't worry about not having the slides. I know how to talk, so don't worry about that at all. So the next thing we want to talk about is, what are the things that they look at when they're trying to figure out how much to pay? So they're going to look at the square footage of your home, what specifically was damaged, where that damage was, but always, 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 they're going to go back to the contract and they're going to say, well, wait a second, she has this kind of coverage, this kind of coverage, this kind of coverage. This is excluded, this is excluded, that's excluded. So the things that are excluded, basically the insurance contract is not going to cover. So don't worry. I mean, that's why we always say, make sure that you understand what the contract covers. Okay, great. Our slides are back. So we'll start right here where it says, how long should it take for the settlement to take place? And that really is going to depend on the nature of your loss. If it's a huge loss, let's say a huge tree falls into your house and they've got to really rebuild a large portion of your home, that's going to take a lot longer to settle that loss than if you only lose a couple of pieces of siding. Now, at any point that you think it's taking too long or you don't know what's going on, talk to that insurance company. They'll go over the process with you. And if you still think, there's a lot of delay going on and I'm not happy with this, that's when you give us a call at the insurance administration, and we'll talk you through the process. And if necessary, we can always get in touch with the insurance company and find out what's going on. What is the reason for the delay? Sometimes, I hate to say it, it may be your contractor. Your contractor may have taken a lot of work, and they don't have the ability to keep up. But you get in touch with us and we will get to the bottom of what is going on and the reasons for any delay. Next slide, please. And so this once again just tells you that if you feel like it's taking too long, get in touch with the insurance company or come to us. Next slide. So deductibles, you heard me mention those a while ago. The deductible is the amount that you need to pay. So all of us, I think, were used to years ago having flat deductibles, $500 or $1,000. Well, over the years, things have changed a bit in the homeowners insurance industry. Now, some companies have, first of all, different deductibles for different types of losses. Not all companies, but some. Some may have one deductible for things like fire, a different deductible for a win-loss. And so you might have multiple types of deductibles in one policy. The other thing that has changed is some companies have changed to something called percentage deductibles. That means the insurance company might charge you a percentage of how much you have your home insured for. So let's say you have your home insured for $200,000 and you have a 10% percentage deductible. That means your deductible is $20,000. So if you have a loss for $21,000, you're responsible for 20 and the insurance company is responsible for 1. If you have a loss for $19,000, you're responsible for the entire 19 and the insurance company isn't responsible for any of it. So it is critical that you understand what your particular deductible is. Next slide, please. So let's say that the damage to your home is extensive, and because of that, you can't stay in your home while the repairs are being done. So what will happen, generally speaking, if you have a homeowner's policy that contains additional living expenses coverage, the insurance company will pay the additional amounts that it costs for you to stay in an apartment or a hotel. But please remember, these are additional amounts. So things like your mortgage or bills that normally would be associated with staying in your home are not going to be covered under the additional living expense. And to the extent that you've got questions about what your specific policy covers when it comes to additional living expenses, talk to your insurance agent or your insurance company. Next slide, please. And this just gives you additional information about what would be covered under additional living expenses. But then once again, make sure that you keep receipts. Those receipts are going to be the way that you get to get money back. No receipts, you're not going to be able to declare that as a part of your claim. Next slide, please. So the other big thing that a lot of people ask about is how much, they hear the term replacement cost, actual cash value, and they don't know what that means. So replacement cost is just that. Under the terms of your policy, if it is a replacement cost policy, then the insurance company, once you replace the items, will pay you how much it cost to get your property back to the point it was prior to the damage. But you have to actually replace those items. If you have an actual cash value policy, what that does is that gives you the value at the time of the loss. So they deduct depreciation. So if you've had, let's say, a table for 10 years and you have an actual cash value policy, they're going to determine how much that property / table is worth, how much it was worth at the time it actually was damaged. Next slide, please. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about water damage, because I know a lot of you have experienced water damage in these last couple of events. And the place that I like to start is making sure that you understand that homeowners insurance does not cover flooding. And people will say, well, what is a flood? I mean, I don't live by the ocean. I don't live by a river. I don't live by a source of water. How could I possibly have a flood? Well, look at these specific terms. Essentially, flooding occurs anytime water seeps from dry land onto your property. So what I like to tell people is if it can rain at your house, it can flood at your house. And so you don't have to live at the ocean to be having flooding. And if there is flooding, that is not covered under homeowners insurance. You have to purchase a separate flood insurance policy for that to be covered. Now, some people will think, well, I don't live in a flood zone, so I can't buy flood insurance. That's absolutely incorrect. In most parts of Maryland, you can purchase flood insurance, and you can actually purchase flood insurance from several different people. There's something called the National Flood Insurance Program, which is a federal program, and it's often referred to as the NFIP. And flood insurance that's sold under the NFIP, you can either go directly to the NFIP and purchase the policy, or some insurance companies will sell a flood insurance NFIP policy. Also, there are some private insurance companies that will sell a private flood insurance policy. But once again, I cannot stress enough, your homeowner's policy does not cover flooding. And if you go to our website, we have a page that is totally dedicated to making sure that you understand what floods are and the coverages that are available. Next slide. And this, once again, just stresses flooding is not going to be considered or covered under your homeowner's policy. Next slide. So if there's, and this slide really, once again, still is really focusing on the water seeping in to your home. So, I mean, what we hear and what we've heard a couple of times from people is that the water came through a door, or it came through cracks in the walls. And the cracks in the walls are something that's considered maintenance, and that is not covered under your homeowner's policy. Next slide. So, but let's talk about something that might be covered under your homeowner's policy. So let's say that you have a situation where normally you've got either a drain or some other pipe that takes water out of your home. And all of a sudden, instead of taking the water out of your home, the water is entering your home through that pipe. For example, let's say you've got a toilet in the basement, and all of a sudden you see raw sewage coming out of that toilet. If that happens and you have something called water sewer backup endorsement, then there may be coverage under your homeowner's insurance policy. Now, what the insurance company may want to do is to really look into if in fact it is truly water sewer, if it's actually a backup, or if there's another cause. So the insurance company may have to come out and do an investigation. And remember early on where I said, take those pictures, because that's going to be at your part of your proof to show how this stuff came in to your basement. And sometimes it might not be actually sewage. It just may be water that backs up from your toilet or the washing machine or whatever. Take those pictures, because you're going to be relying on that as proof to the cause of the damage. Now, here's the thing. Insurance companies have to offer you the water sewer backup coverage, but you have to accept it, and you have to pay an additional premium for it. Now, you can determine, people often say, well, how much coverage, water sewer backup coverage should I get? Well, some people, what I tell people is, if you had sewage that backed up and you had to get a cleaning service to come in and clean that up, how much would it cost? And do you want to go ahead and pay to have that coverage included under your insurance policy, or do you want to come out of pocket at the time of your claim to have that paid for? I mean, it truly depends on, because at the end of the day, it's going to cost what it costs. And either you will pay out of pocket for it, or the insurance company, as long as it's something that's covered. So it's really important that you understand what is covered, and what you have to be responsible for paying for. And once again, that goes back to when you get that declaration page, you need to read it carefully, make sure you understand what's covered and what's excluded. And almost the exclusions are more important than what's covered, because the things that are excluded are going to be the things that you have to pay for out of pocket. Next slide. So this is how you would get in touch with us. You can either call us, take a look at our website, and we've got lots and lots of information on our website that would be helpful to you. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, enter them into the chat, and I'm going to turn it back over to Patty.
Thanks, Joy. So looking at the chat right now, I do not see any questions for the Q&A. If you have questions for Joy, go ahead and put those in the chat. If you would like a breakout room to talk to a representative from the MIA one-on-one, please put that information in the chat as well. And we'll probably go ahead and get those started pretty quickly, since it doesn't look like we have questions. We do have one request for a breakout room so far. All right, so seeing no other questions at this time, we can get started with that breakout room. I do hope the information was helpful. And again, don't hesitate to ask questions. All right, so the
Patty, who needed the breakout room? Because it's no longer in my chat from when I got booted.
Oh. Mudhar. So it says Suhar's iPhone.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. And if you have questions going forward, don't hesitate to contact us. Well, seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up this part then of the event. Again, if you decide you want to break up room, just go ahead and request it. But I'll wrap up the Q&A session. And essentially what we're going to be doing now is if you're not in a breakout room, we are going to hold this room open just in case people come in, because they can come in at any time that they want before 7 o'clock. But we won't be running this part of the event anymore. So if you're here and you're not interested in the breakout room, you can go ahead and leave. Yari would also like a breakout room, Joyce.
Okay.
So yeah, you can go ahead out and leave. If you 15, 20, 25 minutes from now, you think of a question, you can go ahead and you can come back in. We're happy to answer the questions. If you decide, oh, hey, I do want a breakout room, again, you have until 7 o'clock to come back in. All right. Thanks, everybody.